The Paramurder Cast may contain graphic material, not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Prepare to journey into the macabre, where reality blurs with nightmares. This is the Paramurder Cast, where the unseen becomes the unforgettable. Now to your hosts, Dave, Daniel, and CJ. Let the horrors begin.
Welcome to the Paramurder Cast, episode 8. This week's topic is the Toolbox Killers, a listener request episode for one of the friends of the show, Berto. I'm your host, Daniel.
I'm CJ.
I'm David.
Be sure to visit our website at paramurdercast.com for everything paramurder. You'll find a link to the merch store where we're releasing new designs all the time, so be sure to check it out and snag something awesome.
If you'd like to support the show, click on the Patreon link there as well to subscribe. We're creating bonus content just for our patrons each month.
You can also find a donation link at the bottom of the episode information section of your favorite podcast platform. Every bit of support goes directly toward making the show even better.
How was everybody's week at work?
Pretty boring. The IT realm, everybody is off right now. Thanksgiving coming up. And then by the time this drops, I hope all of our listeners had a good Thanksgiving. But yeah, Thanksgiving week, it's very slow. Nobody's in the office right now. Everybody's out. So everybody will be off all next week. So it'll be pretty empty.
Yeah, I wish that happened to my industry. Fucking doesn't.
Super busy. Well, you do shipping, so.
It's literally always busy. Trucks are always driving.
Not a bad thing, though.
It's more like, it's like we have a slow season. Like winter tends to slow down just a little bit compared to summer, which is fucking hectic. Like, it doesn't really make sense because you got most of the holidays and stuff, most of the big holidays during the winter. So you'd think like maybe shipping's up, but it's might be up for like personal stuff, but like businesses and stuff, like a lot of automotive industries, they have got a winter shutdown and stuff, which affects the automotive industry, affects shipping. So like it's a huge impact.
Yeah. What about yours, Dave?
It worked. I don't know.
You just worked?
Just worked.
Repair either fire damage or water damage, right?
Yeah. Did a lot of demolition this past week. Mostly just tearing shit up.
Not bad. Yeah, mine will be a lot of cleaning and a lot of stocking. I have job sites I got to work on, so a lot of prepping for new job setups. You know, new printers, new fucking servers, and new firewalls. Be a fun time, man. I got to travel at some point in time coming up. So be through Washington and Virginia and a couple places. But on to talking about our episode. Have you guys heard of the Toolbox Killers?
Absolutely not.
I don't think so.
Yeah, so they're quite confusing when it comes to their moniker, just due to the fact that you have the Toolbox Killers, and then we have another episode coming up, and that is the Toy Box Killer. So there are two of them where their moniker gets confused quite a bit. Actually, when Berto requested it, I wrote the Toy Box Killer. And then he messaged back and was like, no, I want the Toolbox Killers.
Mm-hmm.
So, very confusing, but...
I don't think it's that confusing. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Well, people do get them mixed up when they talk about true crime all the time.
So,
I pointed out.
These people were good friends of Berto's, right?
Oh, yeah, Berto would not enjoy these people in the slightest. He's probably one of the most happy-go-lucky guys you'll ever meet. And these guys are depressingly fucking crazy. Berto was the roommate before roommates, man. Well, I roomed with CJ, and then I roomed with Berto. But Berto was a good roommate. Cool dude. You guys ready to jump on into the beginning of the show? I do think today's show is probably going to be a two-parter. I would say that the best way for us to handle this is get through the murders, and then we'll pick up on 8.2, and we'll cover the trial and arrest and everything after that, because it is quite a beefy story when it comes to these two gentlemen.
And these two gentlemen named Lawrence Sigmund Bittaker and Roy Lewis Norris. That one just doesn't flow. Roy Lewis Norris.
It does not.
Yeah,
I don't like that. It's not a flowy name.
Yeah.
Like the longer name, Lawrence Sigmund Bittaker, is a lot more flowy than Roy Lewis Norris. I think it's because both of those, the second names is theirs end with S's. I don't know. Lawrence Sigmund Bittaker and Roy Lewis Norris, also known as the Toolbox Killers, were American serial killers and rapists who committed the kidnapping, rape, torture, and murder of 5 teenage girls in Southern California over a 5-month period in 1979. Bittaker was sentenced to death for 5 murders on March 24th, 1981, but died of natural causes while incarcerated on death row at San Quentin State Prison in December 2019. Norris accepted a plea bargain whereby he agreed to testify against Bittaker and was sentenced to life imprisonment on May 7th, 1980, with the possibility of parole after serving 30 years. He died of natural causes at California Medical Facility in February 2020. Bittaker and Norris became known as the Toolbox Killers because the majority of instruments used to torture and murder their victims, such as pliers, ice picks, and sledgehammers, were items normally stored in a household toolbox. Now, granted, I don't know how big your toolbox got to be to store a sledgehammer.
Sledgehammer? Yeah. I was thinking the same thing when I was writing it, but that's how they put it out in the stories. I mean, I don't understand it. But being the fact that they had a van, like basically a fucking maintenance van filled with tools. So they should have went with that more than calling them the Toolbox Killers. Should have been like
called them the maintenance van killers?
The tool truck killers, the tool van killers.
It just doesn't sound as flowy as toolbox.
Is this why, as millennials, we were raised to be wary of solid white vans?
Yeah.
There's a lot of them that kill in solid white vans.
Just vans.
Is that
in
what
general.
they drove? Like, what is it? What kind of van?
I mean, I just imagine solid white.
I imagine like
van.
the stereotypical work van. Like,
stranger danger, David.
Hey kid, you want some candy? You want to see my new drill? That'd probably get me in my 30s now, dude. Some dude pull up my white van, dude. Like, you want to see my new drill? Yeah, dude. Fuck it. Let's see it.
It's a off-white, kind of like an Astra van.
I don't know. I've kind of always wanted to buy a van and live in it, though.
Van life.
In a van down by the river.
Down by the river.
For any Baldur's Gate players out there.
What would you kill people with?
What would you kill people with? Is that the question we're going with?
It was a trick question. But what's concerning is he's thinking about it.
Yeah. He debated, man.
He's really thinking about it.
You know what I would kill people with? Kindness. Yeah.
I don't know. Probably a gun.
A gun.
Yeah, probably just a gun.
This guy's bland over here. Little bang bang.
Kicking it old school.
I couldn't kill anybody. We've already went over this. Wouldn't happen. I am getting rid of the weekly question. I am going to put that out there for everybody right now. I'm getting rid of the weekly question just because we are starting to make bigger episodes and we're having better talking throughout the episodes. So I would rather not open it up with 45-minute talks on questions. Now, we will still have questions in Patreon episodes, but we are not going to do them on regular feed episodes.
Or if a viewer has a question, but like that's relevant to something or whatever, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. If somebody asks us a question, we will answer it or talk about it on the show. But I'm not going to come up with ones week to week because we are getting
unless
better
we
at writing.
blow up and get to the point where we got 50 million questions
And
every
act
week.
like we don't know nobody.
I'm going to act like I don't know anybody.
Stupid popular
That's
video.
my main goal, is to blow up and act like I don't know nobody. Anyway, back into the Toolbox Killers.
Oh,
Yeah.
I did that on purpose. Yeah, I knew it was a Toolbox Killers. I did it on purpose.
All right.
Just testing to see if you were listening.
We are.
Okay. So let's get into Lawrence Bittaker's early life. Lawrence Sigmund Bittaker was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on September 27th, 1940, as the unwanted child of a couple who had chosen not to have children. He was placed in an orphanage by his birth mother and was adopted as an infant. Bittaker's adoptive father worked in the aviation industry, which required the family to frequently move around the United States throughout his childhood. Bittaker was first arrested for shoplifting at the age of 12 and obtained a minor criminal record over the next 4 years after further arrests for the same offense, in addition to petty theft. which brought him to the attention of juvenile authorities. Bittaker would later claim these numerous theft-related offenses committed throughout his adolescence were attempts to compensate for the lack of love he received from his parents. Although reported to have an IQ of 138, Bittaker considered school to be a tedious experience and dropped out of high school in 1957. By this stage in his adolescence, he and his adoptive parents were living in California. Within a year of dropping out, he had been arrested for car theft, a hit and run, and evading arrest. For these offenses, he was imprisoned at the California Youth Authority, where he remained until he was 18 years old. Upon release, Bittaker discovered that his adoptive parents had disowned him and moved to another state. He would never see his adoptive parents again.
They just split, bro.
Said bye.
I mean, there's a certain point in time where you have a child and he's just stealing and getting arrested, and you're just like, man, we adopted you. You're getting older, you know. Mm-hmm. At what point in time do you just go, I'm fucking out of here, man?
I think that's the parents' fault.
No, there are definitely lost causes, man. There are cases that we're going to see of people who were abandoned prior to their parents trying. And then there's just people like Bittaker who he wasn't fixable. He was not fixable to begin with. Neither was Norris. These two guys are, I've said it before when I talk to people about upcoming episodes, but both the toolbox killers and the toy box killer are absolutely some of the worst cases that I've ever read. I can't stand the brutality and rape in stories. I'd much rather read about a crazy psychotic serial killer than read about a killer that also tortures and rapes. I don't know why, it just fucks with me.
Well, buckle up because this goes into some detail.
Yes, it does. I mean, people want to hear detail, and I'm not going to shy away from it.
Suck it up, buttercup.
Yes, stop the episode now if you don't want to hear information regarding rape.
Well, we still got to get through Roy Norris.
Well, let's get through Roy Norris then. So, Roy Lewis Norris was born in Greeley, Colorado on February 5th, 1948. Norris was conceived out of wedlock. His parents had married to avoid the social stigma surrounding illegitimate birth at the time. Norris's extended family lived within a short distance of his parents' home due to his grandfather's real estate investments. His father worked in a scrapyard, and his mother was a drug-addicted housewife. He occasionally lived with his parents throughout his childhood and adolescence, but was repeatedly placed in the care of foster families throughout the state of Colorado. Norris's childhood recollections were interspersed with memories of wrongful accusations while living with his biological parents and of being neglected by many of the foster families he lived with, frequently being denied sufficient food or clothing. He also claimed to have been sexually abused when in the care of a Hispanic family, later stating the prejudice he held towards Hispanic people originated from the neglect and abuse he endured as a child when placed in the care of this family. While living with his birth parents at the age of 16, Norris visited the home of a female relative who was in her early 20s and began speaking to her in a sexually suggestive manner. She ordered him to leave her house and informed Norris's father, who threatened to subject him to a beating. Norris subsequently stole his father's car and drove into the Rocky Mountains, where he attempted to commit suicide by injecting pure air into an artery in his arm. He was later apprehended as a runaway and returned to live with his parents. Upon his return home, Norris's parents informed him that he and his younger sister were unwanted children and that they intended to divorce when both reached adolescence. A year later, Norris dropped out of school and joined the United States Navy. He was stationed in San Diego in 1965, and he was deployed to serve in the Vietnam War in 1969, although he did not see active combat during his 4-month tour of duty. He was honorably discharged from the Navy after one tour of duty.
Out in Vietnam.
A lot of them go in the military. We're starting to see that trend, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of military. And then a lot of them don't make it in the military. His was a little bit more shittier than Bittaker's due to the fact that, Bittaker was just given up right at birth.
Yeah.
Norris's parents actually married and then still put him in foster care.
Mm.
Which makes no sense.
A little rougher.
How are you going to avoid that stigma and then give him to a foster care?
I don't know.
Like, if you're going to go ahead and marry, then you would think they would have stayed together to raise the children. But instead, they married and then still put them in foster care. Sounds like they just wanted to get married.
Like, I understand that some kids are just going to be maybe lost causes and stuff, but I really do think it's the parents' responsibility to teach their kids right and stuff. And if they're letting them do shit that they shouldn't be doing, then...
Yeah, Firm hands fix a lot. I do agree.
Like when he tried to bang his 20-year-old auntie?
Yeah, and they threatened him with a beating. Maybe do something else.
Maybe don't threaten him.
Maybe just beat him.
Maybe just beat him.
Maybe just beat him. That's what I'm saying. Don't threaten him at this point. Just whip his ass.
Take him back to that lady beaten and bruised and make him apologize.
Yeah. Forget threatening him. Actually do it.
All right, so let's get into some of the first offenses. Let's start off with Bittaker here. Within days of his parole from the California Youth Authority, Bittaker was arrested for transporting a stolen vehicle across state lines. In August 1959, Bittaker was sentenced to 18 months imprisonment to be served in the Oklahoma State Reformatory. He was later transferred to the Medical Center for Federal Prisoners in Springfield, Missouri, to serve the remainder of his sentence. In 1960, Bittaker was released from prison and soon reverted to crime. Within months of his release, he had been arrested in Los Angeles for robbery, and in May 1961, he was sentenced to 15 years imprisonment. While incarcerated for this robbery, he was characterized by a psychiatrist as being highly manipulative. The psychiatrist also described Bittaker as having considerable concealed hostility. Bittaker was released on parole in 1963 after completing 2 years of his sentence. In October 1964, he was again imprisoned for a parole violation. In 1966, Bittaker underwent further examinations by 2 independent psychiatrists, both of whom classified him as borderline psychopath, a highly manipulative individual unable to acknowledge the consequences of his actions. Bittaker explained to one of them that his criminal activities gave him a feeling of self-importance, although he insisted that circumstantial matters pertaining to his environment and upbringing decreased his ability to resist committing crimes. Bittaker was prescribed antipsychotic medication. A year later, he was again released into society. A month after his parole in 1967, Bittaker was again arrested and convicted of theft and of leaving the scene of an accident. He was sentenced to 5 years, but was released in April 1970. In March 1971, Bittaker again was arrested for burglary. Due to repeated parole violations, he was sentenced to serve between 6 months and 15 years imprisonment in October 1971. 3 years later, Bittaker was again released from prison. In 1974, Bittaker was arrested for assault with the intent to commit murder after he stabbed a young supermarket employee who had accused him of stealing. The supermarket employee had observed Bittaker stealing a steak and had followed Bittaker outside and into the store's parking lot, where he asked Bittaker if he had forgotten to pay. Bittaker responded by stabbing his pursuer in the chest, narrowly missing his heart. He attempted to flee, but was quickly restrained by 2 other supermarket employees. The employee, Gary Louie, survived the stabbing, and Bittaker was convicted of the lesser charge of assault with a deadly weapon and sent to California Men's Colony in San Luis Obispo.
Maybe keep this fucking guy locked up.
I know. How do you get served 6 months to 15 years? Like, imagine having that over your head.
Yeah, and then he just gets out in like fucking 2. He was sentenced to 15 and served 2 years of it.
Well, it said 6 months to 15 years. Like, imagine that being your sentence, though. You know, you go to jail, and bro's like, when you get out, you just...
He got out in 1960, was put back in 1961. He got out in 63. He was put back in 64. In 66, he had the things done, so he got out in 67, and he went back in 70, and he went back in 71, and he got back out. Jesus Christ.
That's what I'm saying.
At this rate, they should have just let him out for the rapes.
But he was sentenced to a straight 15 years. And then the second time he was sentenced to 6 months to 15 years. Maybe fucking make him serve more than fucking 2 years of his 15-year sentence. At what point in time do you just go, hey man, we've seen you year after year? Well, nowadays California has this 3-strike rule, right? That's California that has that?
These guys are probably why.
I don't think prisons were as privatized back then, so they were worried about actually getting people out of prison instead of keeping them in.
Fuck him. That's what I say, man. At a certain point in time, when he's a repeat offender like this, you just got to keep him in. But yeah, I think California nowadays has a 3-strike rule. He would have been done way beforehand, and the murders never would have happened.
Hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah, they did a terrible fucking job with Bittaker.
Yeah, that was really fucking bad.
Well, it doesn't sound as perverted and degenerate as Norris.
Oh yeah, Norris was definitely a fucking straight psychopath at this point in time.
Well, how about you tell us all about Norris then, David?
In November 1969, Norris was arrested for his first known sexual offenses. He was charged with both rape and assault with the intent to commit rape. In the latter incident, he had attempted to force his way into the car of a lone woman. 3 months later, in February 1970, Norris attempted to deceive a lone woman into allowing him to enter her home. When the woman refused, he attempted to break into her house. The woman phoned the police, who arrested Norris, before he had the opportunity to cause the woman any harm. Less than 3 months after this offense, Norris was diagnosed by military psychologists with schizoid personality disorder. He was given an administrative discharge from the Navy under the terms labeled as psychological problems. In May 1970, Norris, on bail for his latest offense, attacked a female student whom he'd been stalking on the grounds of the San Diego State University campus. Norris repeatedly struck her on the back of the head with a rock until she slumped to her knees, before he repeatedly beat her head against the sidewalk as he knelt upon her lower back. Shortly thereafter, Norris was charged with assault with a deadly weapon. He was committed to 5 years imprisonment at the Atascadero State Hospital, where he was classified as a mentally disordered sex offender. Norris was released from the Atascadero State Hospital in 1975 with 5 years probation, having been declared by doctors as an individual who was no further danger to others. Just 3 months after his release, Norris approached a 27-year-old woman walking home from a restaurant in Redondo Beach and offered her a ride on his motorcycle. When she declined, Norris parked his motorcycle and grabbed the woman's scarf, twisting it around her neck before informing her that he intended to rape her and dragging her into the nearby bushes. Fearing for her life, the woman did not resist the rape. Although the rape was reported to the police, they were initially unable to find the perpetrator. However, 1 month later, the victim observed Norris's motorcycle and noted the license number, which she immediately gave to the police. Norris was arrested for the rape. 1 year later, he was tried and convicted for this offense and sent to the California Men's Colony in San Luis Obispo. While incarcerated there, he met and befriended Bittaker. How the stars align.
Finally get sent to the same men's colony. But I mean, at what point in time do you just lock these guys up forever? Holy shit, man. I feel like California was really lacking in their punishments because we've read stuff out of Ohio, Texas, multiple other states. And after this many offenses, that was it. They were done.
He didn't have many offenses compared to Bittaker, but
3 brutal rapes.
Well, Bittaker's had much more offenses and was in and out a lot more than Norris was. But I knew at the beginning of the episode, I really didn't like Norris. And now I see why. Because realistically, you look at Norris's offenses, they were way worse than Bittaker's early on. Bittaker was just fucking stealing shit and stabbed a guy. That's not, okay, that's pretty bad, but that's not that bad compared to fucking rape.
Yeah, brutal rapes and then beating women half to death.
I think, I don't know, my opinion, I think rape is worse than murder. It's worse than just straight up murdering somebody.
I agree. That's why I said the ones that really mess with me are the brutal rapes and stuff. That's why both of these cases are going to mess with me a little bit, but they need to be covered and they're popular true crime stories. So I wanted to get them done and get them out there for sure. But I'm not a fan of the brutality and the rape. I think it also has to stem a lot from me having a daughter. You know what I mean?
I think possibly one of the only crimes worse than rape would be child rape. So molestation.
Yeah. It's because it just sticks with them, right? I think that's the whole thing is like you're not taking their life, you know what I mean? You're literally psychologically damaging them for the rest of their life.
The way they think and interact with the world and people for the rest of their life,
Yeah. Sometimes psychological damage is worse than physical damage, and that's definitely one of the cases. Whether it be males raping women or women raping males, rape is just psychologically damaging, and I think it's probably one of the worst things you could do.
I also think it stems to think about war. There could be an argument made for why somebody needs to die. There is never an argument for why anybody would need to be raped. Never. Not one. So exactly. I can make an argument that you need to die because if you don't die, you're going to kill 20,000 people. If you were whatever. But there's never an argument.
No, I get where you're going with
we need to rape Daniel.
I mean, if you rape him, maybe he won't kill so many people. Maybe I have to rape you so you don't kill people, Daniel.
Don't you look at me like that.
I don't think so. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't think
that's just my opinion on it.
But I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, dude. Like it's like very morally.
It's unforgivable. It's like if you were thinking about it as the unforgivable curses. You know what I mean?
It's very cruel.
Yeah, it's one of the worst things you can do to another human being. You're taking like their innocence, basically. You're scarring them forever. There's like weird stuff when it comes to it, right? I mean, we talked about Edmund Kemper, and Edmund Kemper, of course, sexually abused them, but he sexually abused them after they were dead. I think there's a difference between just beating a woman half to death.
I think that's just
and then
more
raping her.
Morbid.
Yeah, more morbid versus actually leaving them just scarred forever. And then it's sad to hear that lady just gave up. But I mean, at the same point in time, with a guy like him, that was probably the smart maneuver.
Yeah.
Was to not resist and just let him do it. You know, because he beat the other girl almost to death with a rock and then kneeled on her back and slammed her head into the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So her smart maneuver and not dying was probably just submitting, which is fucking terrible.
Anyway, Bittaker and Norris initially became loosely acquainted in 1977, 1 year after Norris arrived at San Luis Obispo. Bittaker's initial impression of Norris upon his arrival at California Men's Colony was that he was a savvy individual who was largely associated with hardened criminals from motorcycle gangs, in addition to dealing in contraband drugs. The pair gradually became more closely acquainted and began talking in friendly terms when Norris taught Bittaker how to construct jewelry. According to Norris, Bittaker saved him from being attacked by fellow inmates on at least 2 occasions. By 1978, the pair had become close acquaintances, discovering they shared an interest in sexual violence and misogyny, with Norris also divulging to Bittaker the biggest stimulation for him was seeing frightened young women, adding this was the primary reason he had amassed a lengthy record for sexual offenses. Bittaker, who is not known to have committed any sexual offenses prior to meeting Norris, himself divulged to Norris that if he ever raped a woman, he would kill her so as not to leave a witness to the crime. When alone, the pair regularly discussed plans to assault and murder teenage girls after they were released. This shared fantasy evolved into an elaborate plan to murder 1 girl of each teenage year from 13 through 19. The pair vowed to become reacquainted once they were released. That's fucked.
Yep.
That's so wholesome, man. To go to jail and know that you can still see. Remember when we were talking about the death penalty, and I say you should just put people to death. You know.
Yeah.
Because you know the joy they could experience just in a book. You know, and these guys should have been locked up. They should have never got out after they met, honestly. And then they just become the best of friends.
By the time they were in the men's colony, both of them should have been in life imprisonment. But instead, what you get is they wanted to rape a woman from each age category from 13 to 19.
Anyway, what I'm saying is this one leads me more towards your ideology, Daniel, of throwing them in a hole by themselves and letting them fucking rot. Because they were sitting here planning on fucking raping teenage girls when they got out. And, you know, before this, Bittaker wasn't even like, you know, there's nothing that shows that he was interested in that before fucking meeting Norris.
Yeah, no, it was, again, like we talked about prior when we talked about Heaven's Gate. It's feeding into each other, right? Like they've met and now you have that one person that starts stimulating another belief in the other individual and he starts feeding into Bittaker.
2 mental illnesses collide.
When 2 psychopaths meet each other, when their paths cross, man, you just get that perfect storm. But yeah, no, I agree. Like they should be taken in. If you're in for a violent offense or sexual assault or rape or anything else, you should be taken in, put in a cell by yourself, and just left. Let them rot. That you should never see the light of day again. And I think that psychological punishment is worse than taking them out back and putting a bullet through their head. Take them in there, throw them in a damp, dark little room, and let them stay in there forever. Let them go so deep into psychosis and just mental anguish and just let them sit in there and deteriorate into nothing. That is the ultimate punishment, in my opinion. Because I think about it my way, which is if you gave me the choice between death, like we talked about before, or being thrown in a cell and just left forever, I would take death every time. Because then it's just over with and you're out of there. But instead, it's almost like a camp, right? You put a bunch of guys in cell blocks together that all have their own psychosis, and they meet, and eventually what can happen will happen. You have two guys meet that are both psychopaths, and here's what you get.
Con college is what they call it. You go to prison to learn how to become a better criminal.
Well, let's get into California's further fuck up on letting both of these gentlemen out again. Bittaker was released from California Men's Colony on October 15th, 1978. He returned to Los Angeles and found work as a skilled machinist. This work earned Bittaker close to $1,000 a week, the equivalent of about $4,330 as of 2024. And despite classifying himself as a loner, he became friendly with several people in his neighborhood, earning a reputation as a generous and helpful individual who occasionally donated money to the Salvation Army. On one occasion, he is known to have purchased large quantities of food and wine, which he then handed to homeless individuals in downtown Los Angeles. Bittaker was particularly popular among the local teenagers, and later admitted the primary reason was he always had beer and marijuana in his Burbank motel that he resided in, and it became a popular place for teenagers to socialize. On January 15th, 1979, 3 months after Bittaker was released from California Men's Colony, Norris was also released from prison and moved into his mother's home in Redondo Beach. Within 1 month of his release, he had raped a woman, whom he then simply abandoned in a desert. He soon found employment as an electrician in Compton. Shortly thereafter, he received a letter from Bittaker. In late February, the pair met at a hotel and rekindled their plan to kidnap and rape girls. In order for the pair to abduct teenage girls, Bittaker decided that they would need a van as opposed to a car. With financial assistance from Norris, Bittaker purchased a silver gray 1977 GMC Vandora in February of 1979. The vehicle was windowless on one side and had a large passenger side sliding door. According to Bittaker, when viewing this sliding door, he realized he or Norris could pull up to a teenage girl real close and not have to open the doors all the way. The pair would nickname this van Murder Mac.
What the fuck?
The Murder Mac, man.
That's fucked up.
Ow.
Yeah, they didn't only talk about it, they went through with it. Which is sad because it looks like until Norris was released, Bittaker was on the right path.
It just looks like to me as Norris is the fucking much worse piece of shit.
He's definitely the one coaxing Bittaker the wrong direction. It seems like Bittaker got out, and whilst he was still enjoying being kind of a party guy and smoking weed and drinking beer with teenage kids, he still was donating to the Salvation Army. Seems like he was very charitable. So maybe if Norris was never released, Bittaker would have been a different person.
Also, $1,000 a week, or in today's money, $4,300. That's a lot of money.
Being a
pretty good
machinist
fucking money.
was very, very profitable at that point in time. I myself know that just due to the fact that my grandfather was a skilled machinist in that era, and he made himself very, very wealthy. Very wealthy. You know, my grandpa had millions upon his passing. And it was all due to the fact that he was a skilled machinist throughout his whole life, especially if you could operate like a CNC back in that period of time, you were going to make money. Or if you were just skilled on a lathe and a mill.
Anyway.
So the Murder Mac, man, they named the car, the van, they named it Murder Mac. And it's just, again, like we talked about it's even darker because they're planning to target teenage girls specifically. They're not even targeting women. They want to target little girls.
I'd probably paint it green and call it the Mystery Machine.
I wouldn't have got away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling kids.
Hey, teenagers, you want to go solve a mystery? You want to become a mystery?
Hey, kids, do you want your picture on a milk carton?
Shit.
We got to go
Jeepers,
jinkies.
mister. You're really scary. Anyway, let's start getting into these horrible murders that Bittaker and Norris inflicted upon their victims. So from February to June 1979, Bittaker and Norris picked up over 20 female hitchhikers. The pair did not assault these girls in any manner. These practice runs were merely a way for them to develop ruses to lure girls into the van voluntarily and of discovering secluded locations. In late April, the pair found an isolated fire road in the San Gabriel Mountains. Bittaker broke open the locked gate with a crowbar and replaced the lock with one he owned. Bittaker and Norris killed their first victim, 16-year-old Lucinda Lynn Schaefer, on June 24th, 1979. Schaefer was last seen leaving a fellowship meeting at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Redondo Beach. In his written accounts of the events of this day, Bittaker stated he and Norris first finished constructing the bed the pair had installed in the rear of the van, beneath which they placed tools, clothes, and a cooler filled with beer and soft drinks. At approximately 11 a.m., the pair drove to the beach area, drinking beer, smoking grass, and flirting with girls. We had no set routine. At approximately 7:46 p.m., Norris spotted Schaefer walking down a side street toward her grandmother's home and remarked to Bittaker, "There's a cute little blonde." After unsuccessfully attempting to entice Schaefer into their van with alternative offers of marijuana and a lift home, Bittaker and Norris drove further ahead and parked alongside a driveway. Norris then exited the vehicle, opened the passenger side sliding door, and leaned into the van, with his head and shoulders obscured from view behind the door. When Schaefer passed the van, Norris exchanged a few words with her before dragging her into the van and closing the door. Using a ruse they would repeat in most of their subsequent murders, Bittaker turned the radio to full volume as Norris bound the victim's arms and legs and gagged her with duct tape as Bittaker drove Schaefer to the fire road in San Gabriel Mountains, where, in April, the pair had previously switched the locks. Despite initially screaming when she was abducted, Schaefer quickly regained her composure. In his written account of the night that followed, Bittaker wrote that Schaefer displayed a magnificent state of self-control and composed acceptance of the conditions of which she had no control. She shed no tears, offered no resistance, and expressed no great concern for her safety. I guess she knew it was coming. At the fire road, Norris first raped Schaefer after instructing Bittaker to go take a walk and return in 1 hour. Upon returning to the van, Bittaker similarly raped the girl in Norris's absence. Upon the second occasion in which she was raped by Norris in Bittaker's absence, Schaefer asked him whether they intended to kill her, to which Norris replied, no. In response, Schaefer requested to be allowed time to pray before she was killed if that was Bittaker and Norris's intention. In their subsequent accounts of the actual murder, Bittaker and Norris gave differing accounts as to who argued whether they should kill her rather than release her. Each stated the other argued that they should kill her. In any event, Schaefer pleaded for only a second to pray before Norris attempted to manually strangle her. After approximately 45 seconds, he became disturbed at the look in her eyes and ran to the front of the van, vomiting. Bittaker then manually strangled Schaefer until she collapsed to the ground and began convulsing. He then twisted a wire coat hanger around her neck with vice grip pliers until Schaefer's convulsions ceased. Schaefer was denied her request to pray before Bittaker and Norris killed her. Schaefer's body was wrapped in a plastic shower curtain and thrown over a steep canyon Bittaker had selected. According to Norris, after Bittaker had thrown Schaefer over the canyon, Bittaker assured him the animals would eat her up, so there wouldn't be any evidence left.
The brutality in that, man.
What a couple of scumbags.
I mean, she only wanted to pray too. It's crazy to see also some of the strengths in some of these victims. Like, she regained her composure and just kind of accepted that she was kind of just screwed there.
But that's their account of the story. I mean, she could have realistically just gone into fucking shock because a couple of fucking hillbillies just scooped her up.
But
on
at
her way
least
home
by
from
their
church.
accounts, they said she regained her composure. I would kind of take their word on it because I would trust their word that she regained her composure.
Oh, you trust them?
I would like to think that the little girl had some fight in her enough to where she just kind of pulled herself together and went, you know, this is what it is. I mean, because they go into great detail of girls being not composed. So why would they choose to say one girl was very composed during a bad situation, but say the other one, you know, completely melted? Either way it goes, I mean, I like to think she had some little heroic side to her. You know what I mean?
I just don't understand it because I've had consensual sex with a woman who was kind of like not into it, I guess. And then I've had consensual sex with a woman who was very into it. And let me tell you, the ones who are into it is a lot better.
Yeah.
So like, I just don't get the appeal of it. I don't know. For me, it's only good when both parties like want to do it and have fun.
Because you have a normal brain. That's because you seek to please somebody who's seeking to please you. Some of these guys, their pleasure comes from just taking something, but then not only taking something, but then some of them go as far as these guys to where they want to take, but they also want to watch them suffer as they take from them. And that's where you come up with psychopathy. I mean, he even said when they were in prison that his pleasure was the look in their eyes. And but obviously murder wasn't what pleased him because Norris went and threw up trying to strangle her. So it's really weird how, again, they feed into each other, right? Norris wanted the brutality and the rape, but couldn't then kill. Then Bittaker found out he could kill easy, which kind of lines up with their previous crimes too, right? Bittaker stabbed somebody and attempted to kill him, where Norris just seemed to want to beat them and rape them.
I mean, I could stab somebody.
Boo. Leave David alone.
David didn't see Daniel side, but David didn't see. I was pointing at David.
Dave is a bit of a troll, but we love him, and we wouldn't have him any other way other than being a troll.
This is dark.
That's why I said this is going to be a rough episode to digest. At the end of this, I'm probably going to actually do my first viewer discretion is advised, and then I'm going to move it to the front because this is a very dark episode. Like we talked about it before about putting viewer discretion as advised on an episode, and it never made sense. But then as I wrote this, I'm like, this makes sense. This is one of the episodes that makes sense to put viewer discretion is advised because it is very graphic. They told all details and they are horrendous.
That's why I was getting quieter. You know that, right? Because the shit was getting darker and darker. And it affected the way I was reading it.
It is kind of a downer, ain't it? And you're just
look at the fucking shit that I'm reading. It's fucking horrible.
I know. I was just sitting here thinking, like,
there is no funny in this. There's no funny in this. It's okay to have episodes where there's no funny stuff to it. I've listened to many podcasts talk about the Toolbox Killers, and it's not a pleasant episode. It's a very dark episode. They brutally raped and murdered teenage girls, and they did not refrain from talking about the fact that they got really into torturing them. I mean, they wanted the screams. They got really into the looks in their eyes and how the girls pleaded for their life. It's very graphic. But that's what makes it good doing a podcast about it, is because then you get to have our three opinions and us seeing stuff like this for the first time. I've read all of these, so it's not the first time for me. I've heard plenty of episodes on them, but I get to see your guys' reactions live, and viewers get to hear you say how you feel, listeners get to hear you say how you feel the first time hearing it. And that's okay to go quieter. I mean, I'm going to edit out you getting quiet, but for those listening, as he was reading, he starts to kind of fade away when he got into the graphics of the murder because it affected him.
He made me reread that whole thing too.
I did. I made him reread it. I made him say it with his chest. And it only gets worse.
Yeah, that's what David's. He's sitting over there like, are you going to be able to do this? Yeah, I'm going to be able to do it.
Bro, the next one's pretty. I don't know if I could read the. Ooh. Tell me about it, CJ, and I'll see if I don't get pissed off about it.
Okay. Fuck. On July 8th, 1979, 2 weeks after the murder of Schaefer, Bittaker and Norris encountered 18-year-old Andrea Joy Hall hitchhiking along the Pacific Coast Highway. As the pair slowed the van to offer Hall a lift, another vehicle pulled over and offered Hall exactly that, which she accepted. Bittaker and Norris followed the vehicle from a distance until Hall exited the vehicle in Redondo Beach. On this occasion, Norris hid in the back of the van in order to dupe Hall into believing Bittaker was traveling alone. Inside the van, Bittaker offered Hall a cold drink from the cooler in the rear of the van. Norris, who had hidden behind a bedspread in the rear of the van, pounced on Hall when she attempted to retrieve the drink and, after a strenuous fight, managed to subdue her by twisting her arm behind her back, causing her to scream in pain. Norris then gagged Hall with adhesive tape and bound her wrists and ankles. Bittaker and Norris drove Hall to a location in the San Gabriel Mountains beyond where they had earlier taken Schaefer. At this location, she was raped twice by Bittaker and once by Norris. While Bittaker was raping Hall for a second time, Norris saw what he believed to be vehicle headlights approaching. Bittaker clasped his hand over Hall's mouth and dragged her into nearby bushes as Norris drove in an unsuccessful search for the vehicle he thought he had seen. When he returned, the pair drove to a location farther in the San Gabriel Mountains. Bittaker forced Hall to walk uphill naked alongside the road and then perform oral sex on him before ordering Hall to pose for several Polaroid pictures. Bittaker and Norris drove Hall to a third location, where Bittaker again walked Hall up a nearby hill, this time as Norris drove to a nearby store to purchase alcohol. When Norris returned, Bittaker was alone and in possession of 2 further Polaroid pictures he had taken, both of which depicted Hall's face in expressions Norris later described as being of sheer terror, as she begged for her life to be spared. Bittaker informed Norris that he had told Hall he was going to kill her and challenged her to give him as many reasons as she could come up with as to why she should be allowed to live, before thrusting an ice pick through her ear into her brain. He then turned her body over and thrust the ice pick into her other ear, stomping on it until the handle broke. Bittaker then strangled Hall before throwing her body off a cliff.
It's tough.
Jeez. So she didn't die from having an ice pick in one ear and then the other. She died from the strangulation.
I mean, there's still probably plenty of vitals going, the brain injury.
It's not even the murder that bugs me as much as what he does prior to the murder.
It's the making her beg and fucking mocking her and taking pictures of her as she's begging for her fucking life. What a piece of shit.
Start listing reasons why I should let you live. Like, if you're going to murder somebody, just fucking do it. Don't then sit there and torment them. The torment is what really fucking bugs me. It's what really gets to me is the torment. The fact that they are taking sheer pleasure from knowing they're going to kill her anyway, but giving that false hope. There's nothing worse than giving people false hope to pull it away, to give them false hope to pull it away. Like I said, Bittaker found out he could kill. Norris loved torturing and raping them, but Bittaker found out he loved killing them. And it was a perfect storm, and it's horrendous. The next one is really fucking bad.
All right, I'll give it an attempt.
Yeah. It gets really dark. These next 2 are the worst.
If it gets too bad, we'll just leave in there that I attempted to read this and couldn't and had to give it off to David, but we'll try it. So, on September 3rd, Bittaker and Norris observed 2 girls named Jackie Doris Gilliam and Jacqueline Leah Lamp sitting on a bus stop bench near Hermosa Beach. Lamp and Gilliam had been hitchhiking along the Pacific Coast Highway before Bittaker and Norris observed them as they were resting at the bus stop. Bittaker and Norris offered the girls a ride, which Gilliam and Lamp accepted. Inside the van, both girls were offered marijuana by Norris, which they accepted. Shortly after entering the van, both girls realized that Bittaker had steered the van off the Pacific Coast Highway and was driving in the direction of the San Gabriel Mountains. When the girls protested, both Bittaker and Norris attempted to allay the girls' concerns with excuses, which did not deceive either girl. Lamp, aged 13, attempted to open the sliding door, whereupon Norris hit her in the back of the head with a bag filled with lead weights, briefly knocking her unconscious, before overpowering 15-year-old Gilliam. As he began to bind and gag Gilliam, Lamp regained consciousness and again attempted to flee the van, whereupon Norris twisted her arm behind her back and dragged her back into the van. As this struggle ensued, Bittaker, noting the girl's struggle was in full view of potential witnesses, stopped the van, punched Gilliam in the face, and assisted Norris in finishing binding and gagging the 2 girls. Gilliam and Lamp were driven to the San Gabriel Mountains, where they were held captive for almost 2 days, being bound and gagged between repeated instances of sexual and physical abuse. Both men slept in the van alongside their 2 hostages, with each alternatively acting as a lookout. On one occasion, Bittaker walked Lamp onto a nearby hill and forced her to pose for pornographic pictures before returning her to the van. Bittaker also asked Norris to take several Polaroid pictures of himself and Gilliam, both nude and clothed. In the first 3 instances in which Bittaker raped Gilliam, he also created a tape recording of himself raping her, forcing the girl to pretend she was his cousin and informing Gilliam to feel free to express her pain. After almost 2 days of captivity, Lamp and Gilliam were murdered. At Bittaker's subsequent trial, Norris claimed he had suggested that Gilliam be killed quickly as, unlike Lamp, she had been largely cooperative throughout the period of her captivity, whereupon Bittaker replied, "No." Gilliam was struck in each ear with an ice pick and then strangled to death. After Bittaker had murdered Gilliam, he then forced Lamp out of the van. Upon exiting the sliding door, Bittaker shouted to her, "You wanted to stay a virgin, now you can die a virgin," before Norris struck her upon the head with a sledgehammer. Bittaker then strangled Lamp until he believed she had died. When Lamp opened her eyes, Norris again bludgeoned her repeatedly as Bittaker strangled her to death. The bodies of Gilliam and Lamp were thrown over an embankment into the chaparral.
It kills the mood, don't it?
Yeah, I got nothing to say about that, I don't think.
It's going to be hard to search for words in between some of the murders of some of the episodes coming up.
Just a couple of fucking pussies are the only words I could think of.
But the only thing I have to say about that is they start to build their MO, right? Like, I don't want to ignore that. They're starting to build their modus operandi. They are moving away from what they practiced. They practiced earlier on at coaxing the girls into the van, and they've quickly maneuvered to the fact of cranking up music. And if they can't coax them close enough to the van, of just pulling them in and turning that music up and gagging them quickly. That way they can get them out of the area as fast as possible. It's a crime of that era again. Nowadays, you couldn't do that as easy, right? If you tried to pull somebody into a van nowadays, you're going to be on a Ring camera. You're going to be on some type of surveillance camera. So at that point in time, in that era, it was a lot easier to do that. But again, they're starting to find out their modus operandi. Now they're starting to kill certain ways. Seems like Bittaker himself favors that ice pick on each side of their head, in one ear and in the other. Strangulation is also a very common tactic they employ. And then they seem to dispose of the women just by chucking them into large valleys down cliffs and then just hoping that the animals dispose of them. It's dark. I mean, either of you want to elaborate how that shit makes you feel? Because it's your first time seeing it? Angry?
Angry.
Well, I will say,
Just angry.
At least Lamp didn't get raped.
Oh, she was raped. I'm pretty sure she was raped. It was just a tactic of him. I'm pretty sure she was raped.
But why would he say you wanted to stay a virgin, now you can die a virgin?
Maybe she wasn't. Maybe she wasn't. I mean, all we have is their word on it, right?
I mean, these fucking psychopaths had these girls for 2 days. I doubt they just didn't rape her for some moral code. They made her pose for pornographic Polaroids.
Could you imagine? I just want to step out of that realm for a second. This is why I turned down being a juror. So for those listening, I was selected not long ago to be a juror, and I pretty much did everything I could to get out of it and was successful at that. But this is the reason why I don't want to be a juror. Could you imagine being selected, taken in, and put on a case like this, and you have to look at these Polaroids or listen to the tape? Because they were all shown and played in court. I couldn't do it. I would have to be excused by day one. The first time they put a Polaroid up there of a teenage girl being forced to pose seductively like that or played that tape, I'm out. I don't want to be in there anymore. It's hard to think about that. I mean, these are the type of cases where the jury convicts you in like 20 minutes. You took some pretty damning evidence that's going to literally punch the average person in the face when they have to look at it. So they're convicted almost immediately. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The jury's going to go in. Nobody's going to oppose it. You're getting the maximum sentence immediately.
Which they fucking deserved. Well, let's get into, thankfully, their final victim. Not thankful that they, did this to this person.
It's their worst killing.
It's just the last one. Good thing it didn't continue after this is what I'm getting at. So, Bittaker and Norris abducted their final victim, 16-year-old Shirley Lynette Ledford, on October 31st, 1979. Ledford was abducted as she stood outside a gas station, hitchhiking home from a Halloween party in the Sunland, Tahunga suburb of Los Angeles. Investigators believe Ledford accepted a ride home from Bittaker and Norris because she recognized Bittaker, as he is known to have frequented the McDonald's restaurant in which Ledford held a part-time job as a waitress. Upon accepting the offer of a lift home and entering the van, Ledford was offered marijuana by Norris, which she refused. Bittaker drove the van to a secluded street where Norris drew a knife, then bound and gagged Ledford with construction tape. Bittaker then traded places with Norris, who drove in an aimless manner for in excess of an hour as Bittaker remained with Ledford in the back of the van. After removing the construction tape from the girl's mouth and legs, Bittaker tormented Ledford, initially slapping and mocking her, then beating her with his fists as he repeatedly shouted for her to say something. Then, as Ledford began screaming, shouting for her to scream louder. As Ledford continued screaming, Bittaker began asking her as he struck her, "What's the matter? Don't you like to scream?" As Ledford began to cry, she pleaded with Bittaker, repeatedly saying, "No, don't touch me." In response, Bittaker again ordered her to scream as loud as she wished, then began alternately striking her with a hammer, beating her breasts with his fists, and torturing her with pliers, both between and throughout instances when he raped and sodomized her. Repeatedly, Ledford can be heard pleading for the abuse to cease and making statements such as, "Oh no, no," as sounds of Bittaker alternately extracting either the sledgehammer or the pliers from the toolbox can be heard on a tape recording he made after entering the rear of the van. Norris later described hearing screams, constant screams, emanating from the rear of the van as he drove. Shortly after Norris switched places with Bittaker, he himself switched on the tape recorder that Bittaker had used to record much of the time he had been in the rear of the van with Ledford. Norris first shouted for Ledford to "Go ahead and scream, or I'll make you scream." In response, Ledford pleaded, "I'll scream if you stop hitting me," then emitted several high-pitched screams as Norris encouraged her to continue until he ordered her to stop. Norris then reached for the sledgehammer as Ledford, seeing him do this, screamed, "Oh no!" Norris then struck Ledford once upon the left elbow. In response, she informed Norris he had broken her elbow, before pleading, "Don't hit me again." In response, Norris again raised the sledgehammer as Ledford repeatedly screamed, "No." Norris then proceeded to strike Ledford 25 consecutive times upon the same elbow with the sledgehammer before asking her, "What are you sniveling about?" as Ledford continuously screamed and wept. After approximately 2 hours of captivity, Norris killed Ledford by strangling her with a wire coat hanger, which he tightened with pliers. Ledford did not react much to the act of strangulation, although she died with her eyes open. Bittaker then opted to discard her body on a random lawn in order to view the reaction from the press. The pair drove to a randomly selected house in Sunland, where Norris discarded Ledford's body in a bed of ivy upon the front lawn. Ledford's body was found by a jogger the following morning. An autopsy revealed that, in addition to have been sexually violated, she had died of strangulation after receiving extensive blunt force trauma to the face, head, breasts, and left elbow, with her olecranon sustaining multiple fractures. Her genitalia and rectum had been torn, caused in part by Bittaker having inserted pliers inside her body.
Well, damn.
That's pretty fucked.
What, you don't got a good pair of butt pliers?
Almost the same purpose as they used the pair of anguish we went over in a episode about torture on the Patreon. If you're not a Patreon subscriber, go subscribe to listen to that. But It's horrible, man. The good part about this murder, which there's no real good part. What I mean by that is the best part of them doing this is they swap their MO to what got them caught. Had they taken her to that secluded mountain again and done all of this there, they never would have been caught, I don't think. Because nobody was checking that area until Norris, we'll read later, until Norris took them to that mountain range, they never found a body there. Had they continued taking their victims to that mountain range, they never would have been caught. It was only the choice that they wanted to be more sadistic and throw the body out on somebody's random lawn that got them caught.
Yeah, it also looks like as these murders are going on and these rapes, it's just getting worse and worse every single time.
Yeah, I mean, it escalates pretty quickly. They go from wanting to see the look in their eyes to experimenting with killing to immediately full-blown torture, to hitting and breaking her elbow and then hitting that same spot 25 times.
I'm just glad I don't have to read even more worse the shit than this, because it looks like it was just steadily getting worse and worse, and that's pretty fucking bad. I don't really want to imagine what would be more worse than what they fucking did.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they had gone to that mountain, it probably would have continued.
Worse. They would have never gotten caught had they kept their regular MO. Had they stayed driving them to a mountain range and chucking them off the edge of that cliff and murdering them there, they would have never gotten apprehended. And that's crazy to think of, right? Like, all you have to do, and it's sad when you start looking into stuff like this. If you look into some of the cases, even like the FBI has open now, sometimes all they can do is wait for these people to slip up. That's all they can do, is wait for them to make a mistake. And that's what they did. They made a mistake. They chose to kill them while driving and toss the body out onto the lawn.
All right, guys. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up for this week. Next week, or whenever it releases, we're going to be going into the investigation, the incarceration, the end of these miserable fucks' lives.
I appreciate everybody joining for this week. Like he said, we'll pick up on part 2 next week, and we'll go ahead and finish up all of the remainder information on Bittaker and Norris. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and we will see you guys next week.
We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to visit our website at paramurdercast.com for everything paramurder. There, you can check out our merch store, where we release new designs all the time, so be sure to snag something awesome.
If you'd like to support the show, click on the Patreon link to subscribe. While you're there, we're working on exclusive bonus content just for our patrons each month.
You can also find a donation link at the bottom of the episode information section on your favorite podcast platform. Every bit of support helps us to make the show even better.
Until next time, stay curious and stay spooky.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope you join us again. Until then, may your nights be restless and your dreams haunted. And beware the things that go bump in the night.
No, I've been trying to adjust it to help you from cutting out, but if you talk directly into it like this, every breath you take in,
every breath you take, every lisp you make, every stutter you make.
You did not make that up.
I did, but I couldn't improvise anymore. I couldn't think of another one after that.
But it was perfect. Every stutter you make. That was great. I like it.
I hate you so much.